Good morning, everybody. While we wait for the last 10 persons or 20 to enter the room, I will just start squabbling and draw to your attention to what is going to happen. No practical notices. It is some of you who were here in spite of the storm already for the opening session will know that I actually opened the conference by referring to the Brazilian president, Dilma Rousseff, who has a favorite phrase that she prefers the noise of the free press to the funeral silence of dictatorship. And I also said that Brazil has added its share of democratic noise to the international sports community in the past year or so. I think we can say that without offending anybody. And at Play the Game, we have a tradition of conceiving noise as something that is very often refreshing. And we can then say today that the Brazilian government to this conference has added a little less noise than we had hoped for, because the Deputy Minister of Sport is not coming. But I would say that without offending the Deputy Minister, we are not in that way disappointed, because we have so many other excellent Brazilian speakers to look forward to. They are not directly government representatives, although they are all in some kind of public function. But they have very different roles to play in the organization and the evaluation of mega events. And I will introduce the speakers as they go along, not everybody and the same. I could just briefly say that we have traveling 23 hours, arriving very late at night. We have Saint-Clair Milesi, who is, it is Milesi, no? Milesi. Oh, it's Italian. Okay, Saint-Clair Milesi, who is the head of communication of the local organizing committee for the World Cup 2014. And this World Cup, although it's next summer, it's very close. So we really thank you for giving this meeting priority. And we know that you are also a man who favors debate, and look forward to hear what you will add to this debate. And when I was in Brazil last year, I was at an anti-corruption conference, and I was very impressed to see how the Brazilian government has some quite strong initiatives they're very conscious about the corruption that is quite widespread in Brazilian society. And there is an institution which you may not regard as the most sexy institution in any country, the institution that sort of has control with public expenditure, sets up guidelines, etc. And we have Brenno de Souza, who is the deputy head of the department that oversees the control of these mega events. And we have then one of Brazil's most leading sport commentators, sport analysts, Katia Rubio, who is also professor. Originally, I think you are professor of sports psychology, but is much more of a contemporary sports historian dealing with Olympic athletes, and also runs a quite controversial TV show at the ESPN. Is that? Yeah. And it is called your TV show?
Secrets of the Sport.
The Secrets of Sport. That gives you an indication to which where it goes. I'd assume they're not secret when they have been on ESPN anymore. But and then we have another person you may know from other Play the Game conferences if you have attended these. His name is Jennings. He is in many international sports circles like the icon of everything that's wrong with journalism.
We just rerun that, please.
But because Andrew has had the courage and the energy over 20 years to confront international sports organizations with facts, very inconvenient facts, and lots of them, and very well documented. So I would say he has also made some noise over 2 decades. I think I can. Isn't it? Couldn't we call it democratic noise? What do you
I hope so. Yes.
Yes. And Andrew has had a special role to play in Brazil, because unlike many other places, they have actually really embraced this noise, welcomed it, activated it, and I'm sure you will tell a little about that in your expose later. So, and while I was just talking and almost talking you to sleep again, more people have entered the room, and that was part of the exercise. So I would like to welcome Saint-Clair Milesi, Head of Communications, to outline some of the conceptions and misconceptions of the World Cup. Let me just to declare, the local organizing committee, it's not FIFA and it's not the government. It is like between a rock and a hard place. Exactly. You can tell more about that. Yeah.
Yes, even though it's for the first time the LOC is funded, totally funded by FIFA, the LOC, it's actually laying the groundwork from both government side, making the liaison now, since May last year, with more active and more integrated with government and FIFA. I think I'll move to the pulpit there, and then I could get started, maybe. Yes. Thank you, Jens. Thanks for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here. It was a long trip for me. It was a long trip for everybody, so it's good to be here and share an open debate with you and offer our perspective in Brazil, from Brazil, on what we see in terms of perceptions. I'm not here to talk about what the World Cup brings to Brazil. I'm actually tackling some, from a communications point of view, how we at the local organizing committee see some perception of both of our work, our country, and our relationship with FIFA. I apologize for the cold, so please bear with me, okay? We don't have much time. I have about 15 minutes, so, okay, if this works, it'd be better. I think it's off. Thank you. No. Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll go straight to the points. The misperceptions that we see as being spread around about the World Cup in Brazil, and a little bit about the legacy. Not the legacy that stays beyond. A legacy word for us is not what's happening after the World Cup, or how a consultancy will evaluate what happened in the event. We see the legacy happening, and I'm going to share some thoughts with you at this opportunity. Please, the next one. Okay, a few misperceptions about the World Cup in Brazil as we see. Please, next one. The World Cup takes away public money that could be used on health, education, and security. Okay, I brought you some figures here. First of all, during June, the Confederations Cup, we saw a lot of discussions going on, a heated, popular social movement recognized worldwide, and the freedom to demonstrate, the freedom to fight for your rights is always cherished by us from our perspective. But we also have to put a few things in perspective, because the World Cup is a reality. And we saw some perceptions turning into arguments against hosting it, while the country had already invested a lot of money and a lot of effort. And there's a big window of opportunity to be seized, and we cannot throw it away from. I'm talking again, going back to from a communications point of view, as a tool to help promote and reposition Brazil as a country, and Brazilian products and the Brazilian people. So public investments in mega events, we have here data on the relationship with the GDP in Brazil. Between 2007 and 2013, when Brazil was awarded the World Cup, The government invested 311 billion. Those are data. This is data from the government, not from us. 447 billion in health. The stadium loans have been attacked as public money being wasted in football. It's actually a loan going to the states and operated some in concessions that are going to pay those loans off. So if you look into the World Cup costs, what happened is we have a big bucket of initiatives in infrastructure that are much needed in the country that were labeled as World Cup. And we managed to let this perception grow and those magic numbers pop up to the mind of people who are covering the World Cup in my country. Okay, the World Cup has a price tag of 30 billion. That's the tagline of many lead paragraphs worldwide. And when you're a first reader, you look into that, you think, okay, those guys are wasting $30 billion in a stadium. And that's not true. If you look at it, 7.7 is invested on the stadium, and it's going to be paid in loans by the stadium proprietor, sorry. And if you look at that further ahead, I'm going to go into the multiplier effect that's going to cost, but that's going to provoke in the country, not us saying independent studies as well. The tax revenues alone resulting from the FIFA World Cup being hosted in Brazil are expected to surpass the investment in the stadium. So to me, that's, of course, one may question the result, one may question the methodology, but we have access to different studies that point that this movement caused by the World Cup is indeed going to generate a positive effect in Brazil that will surpass. I'm going to go over in the next slide. So as I mentioned, the other 18.5 billion in the responsibility matrix that's listed in the federal government's website goes into infrastructure stock that the country needs. So we need better airports now. We don't need it because FIFA is asking for them. Brazilians are traveling. The Brazilian economy had made a big jump recently. We managed to include more people in the middle class. There's progress happening. There's a lot of room to catch up. But we have to look at Brazil as a whole. The World Cup is not the end. The World Cup is an opportunity for the country, a stepping stone for something in Brazilians' way, not to change and divert from Brazilians' growth path, but use the FIFA World Cup as an opportunity to step further. Okay, last year, and this last bullet is worth mentioning as well. Oh, going back to the infrastructure, recently the McKinsey group, if I'm not mistaken, released a study that was published on The Economist. Our infrastructure stock GDP relationship is very, very low we're the 7th economy in the world at this stage. And this investment in infrastructure, one can question, okay, we don't need this now. What, the airport? Yes, all airport infrastructure work conducted is needed. If you read the news in Brazil, you'll see people are traveling more and more and more. So the World Cup ends up being also an opportunity to push projects that were in the drawers for ages and ages and never came through. Okay, we can go to the next one, please. Okay, thank you. Stadia, the most expensive in the world, and will become white elephants, and public money is being wasted. That's another misperception in our view. Okay, the stadia, first, to start, they were conceived as multi-purpose arenas. They're not just football fields. So the Brasilia example I used there, Brasilia, the golden elephant, I'm going to go through this situation in Brasilia. The price per seat is lower than in South Africa and Japan, Korea. We use the Play the Game Stadium Index, and we use the portal, the transparency portal of the government, and calculated the price of the stadia and compared. We can share with Jens this, and he could actually access this information from the study you published before. So Brazil's supporting infrastructure and spectator service do not meet their achievements on the pitch. Now I'm going back to football, which is actually the genesis of all that. Brazil is known worldwide for being a great footballing country. It's true, you have 5 titles on your pocket, you can't deny that. But our pitches, our stadia had never been up to par to our performance on the pitch. So the World Cup is also an opportunity for that. And the numbers of the average attendance are already showing that. If you single out the 6 arenas, the modern arenas built for the FIFA Confederations Cup that are going to remain for the FIFA World Cup, We see an average attendance of 23,487 people as of October 27th. That's better than the best ever in the national championship that happened in '83, and it's greater than the Italian average last year. This was inconceivable in Brazil a year ago. Like if you think about attendance rates in Europe, you never compare to Brazil. We were known for good football, but also for poor infrastructure, which Katia can attest for us here later if she's a specialist more than me in sporting infrastructure. So Brasilia, singling out Brasilia, the stadium in 16 events since it was inaugurated welcomed 600,000 spectators, already more than the old stadium in 36 years. So before the construction, it was deemed as the whitest elephants of all. And here's the example. If you use creative solutions, if you promote local football, if you use the stadium as a multi-purpose arena to make it sustainable, because I mean, we're not going to be slaves to one single sporting event. Well, you have to use the space. It's like an airplane taking off with empty seats. If you have a stadium not being used, conceived as a multi-purpose arena, we have a problem. Okay, moving forward. World Cup tickets are expensive and not accessible to poor Brazilians. Well, it's actually true that not all Brazilians will have access. Not all Americans will have access. You have 3 million tickets being sold, and you have a country of passionate 200 million fans, maybe. So that equation will never be fair to anyone. So if you look at the prices of overall events, I mean, I don't like much that comparison with other events, but if you look at a Super Bowl that happens every year, of course, it's a dot out of the curve. It's a big show. The Rock in Rio events in Rio, it's a well-known event that happens in Brazil occasionally. One point I'd like to single out now is the price of tickets in Brazil. The average price is pretty much the entry-level price for the Cat 4 tickets. That are more than 300,000 tickets are being sold under that category. The LOC doesn't deal with ticketing, but those are facts. I'm not defending perceptions here. I'm stating facts, but it's a FIFA attribution to sell tickets and the marketing program as the LOC model is stated for Brazil. Okay, and 120,000 tickets, including donations for the workers at the stadium. Each worker will receive access to a FIFA World Cup match, the builders of the stadium. 50,000 tickets were donated to Bolsa Familia and native Brazilians, and so that's with the federal government to allocate how they're going to use it. The World Cup makes a profit that goes back to Europe, leaving no legacy and debt. Okay, that I mean, I'm not coming up with those phrases. My guys in Brazil monitoring the news, they pinched that and they piled them up, and the 7 most mentioned conceptions or misconceptions, as we prefer to see it. Okay, this is the direct investment of the FIFA World Cup in Brazil. So 1.6 billion reais into the Brazilian economy. I'm not talking about the infrastructure that the government is moving in the country. That's much more, and all the multiplier effect it carries with it. But I'm talking straight organizational tournament numbers. Okay, the FIFA World Cup legacy is already happening in Brazil, as I was discussing before. Qualification, we travel around a lot. Brazil is a very big country, but we try to get out of Rio as much as we can because the World Cup is happening in the cities. It's not in Rio, which everybody knows. So we have 11 other host cities that are there for the take for football fans and for tourists to see. Studying English in the middle of the Amazon, programs to qualify people to work as tour guides in the World Cup. Then we go to the construction site in Itaquera. You have illiterate construction workers taking the opportunity of studying in the construction site. The business dynamics around the construction sites. A lot is going on already. So that in the infrastructure side. In the sporting side, the LOC is promoting pitch management seminars. Today, as I speak, there's one to train every stadium groundsman to a new reality, actually, because Brazilian pitches, if you remember our goals in the media newscast here in Europe, in the worldwide, You saw like bad lighting, bad pitches in the stadium. So, and many people ask me, like, how come Brazil is 5-time FIFA World Cup champion and have this kind of pitch to show in the world? So that's changing, but that takes work and that takes time. And it's a legacy that's happening in our view, and we're very proud to offer that for Brazil and for the rest of the states, actually, because we're organizing these seminars for stadium management, pitch management, not only for the World Cup stadia. So we're offering a chance for football clubs, for the federations, for everybody who is willing to attend, actually, under the limitations of a room, of course. But we're open and we're pushing because we believe in this legacy for sport. Okay, this last bullet is just a perception that was included there, because people, Walter de Gregório was here yesterday, I don't know, because we crossed each other, I guess he left. I don't know what you discussed on FIFA, but in Brazil especially, there's a big, it's not a misperception, it's actually, people don't know what's FIFA role actually, what's the governing body of football doing. So it's just an information there to say that the World Cup is a cash cow for FIFA, but it's the profit money is going elsewhere. Then you can argue different things of governance that you discussed yesterday, and but we're talking here straight about the World Cup. Because before I was talking with Bruno, correct? Brenno, sorry, I'm horrible with names. I apologize. Brenno, on how in Brazil these debate of what happened in the past, what happened, all the political and the perception issues that went on with organizing the World Cup in Brazil cannot harm this window of opportunity for the country that we see. We see a lot of discussions on things that happened in the past and a lot of discussions that will not change the reality that the World Cup is happening in Brazil next year. So we as a country, we need to do our best to make sure we seize that opportunity, these opportunities that I'm commenting here with you. Okay, moving forward, many people are losing their homes due to the World Cup. Well, that's the information we get. We visited, of course, I'll take 2 steps back. Human rights, of course, human rights, we're always concerned about human rights. We don't want to live in a country where you have inequalities, where you violate people's rights. That's obvious, and I don't think anyone could argue differently in a sane mind. But the information we have, working with the cities, with the states who are building the stadiums, is that none of the 12 stadia is causing evictions. And we see that a lot in the press, that Brazilian stadiums, the FIFA World Cup is taking people out of their homes. Any eviction is related to infrastructure work that's needed for the country. And it must be guided by the law in Brazil. So it's the rightful role of the press, of the society, to make sure that's happening. But we cannot input that into the World Cup bill, because I'm sorry, things are moving, things are happening. It's a dense, Brazil has very dense cities, and you can argue if it's been done right or been done wrong. What you can't, in my view, say is that, okay, blame it on the World Cup. That's not fair. Investments do not pay off. Okay, this is the study I mentioned. It was conducted by FGV. It's a leading Brazilian financial institution, and Ernst Young. They calculated on the basis of the responsibility matrix. That's the number they came up. The multiplier effect, like every major incentive or cash inflow in an economy, of course, it causes a multiplier effect. And you can argue, okay, 3.4 is too much or it's too less. That happens. Like it happens for the Bolsa Familia, the revenue allocation plan for the government. It causes a multiplier effect, and it's proven by the access of millions and millions of people into the middle class. So that parallel, of course, to a macroeconomic benefit plan that happened to the country. So to every real invested, the public sector will move actually 3.4 reais in the private sector. That's data used by the Brazilian government as well. Minister Aldo was just speaking about this 2 days ago. 250,000 tourists traveled to watch the Confed Cup, and the impact was just under 1 billion reais. That's numbers from the Ministry of Tourism. And 3/4 of the tourists came from abroad and would like to come back next year. Those are numbers that mirror what happened in South Africa. The Confed Cup, 138, that's an interesting fact just to show how Brazil is moving and how Brazilian tourists are different, are special. Average expenditure of $138 of Brazilian people traveling in Brazil. So almost double, more than double than the expenditure of foreign tourists. That's data from Itaú Bank, Brazil's largest bank. And last point there, during the World Cup, tourists are expected to spend $2.6 billion in the country. That's data from Embratur based on an estimate of 350,000, an inflow of 350,000 people in Brazil during the World Cup. The match schedule that's going to be decided on December 6th will be instrumental to see if that's actually going to happen or not. But if Argentina plays Uruguay, for example, in Porto Alegre, we may have an inflow of thousands and thousands of people just for that match and then back because our neighboring countries. I think this is the last point. Brazilians are against the World Cup. We hear that's not a big perception because I don't think anyone could say the majority can, because the polls are showing exactly the opposite. And Ibope is Brazil's largest, one of the largest, there's others, 2, 3 others, largest polling institutes. It did a very interesting study. There was actually the cover page of Época magazine. It's the Brazilian second leading magazine. During the demonstrations, they took the streets and they went to the homes of people and made sure they spoke to different constituent groups. Like, okay, you're demonstrating, and they approached people asking about, among other things, about support to the World Cup. And the number of people, the support numbers for people on the streets and at home was the same, exactly the same. So that shows that even though there's a lot going on, Brazil is experiencing a very interesting moment, maturing its democracy, maturing the ways how it deals with requests and the needs of society. But this stood even during the heat of the demonstrations in June that took everybody by surprise. We're not lying here. It happened, and everybody was very much surprised because it happened in the middle of something that we in 2007 celebrated a lot as a country, that we had the chance to host it. So another Datafolha in June showed that 90% of Brazilian people consider that the FIFA World Cup is important for the country, and 70% consider it to be very important. Another indicator of our interest, I didn't put ticketing there because out of the ticketing requests, we have 70% of Brazilians requesting the more than 6.4, I think, million ticket requests in the first sales phase. The volunteers program, Brazil does not have a culture of volunteering very, very developed in the country. So for every event, I guess you are a volunteer as well, people hire people rather than, I mean, you have economic reasons for that, you have a lot, but as Brazil grows and as big events arrive in our country, volunteering and volunteers are the fiber of big events as well. They bring the spirit, they bring the very basic spirit of what the competition and what the tournament is all about. So we were very happy to see that we broke the records, 2 times what happened in South Africa and 3 times Germany. And with a lot, even though 92% of applicants are Brazilians, we saw a lot of interest from abroad, and a very interesting trend of countries that recently hosted major events like Poland, Colombia with the South American Games, Ukraine. So a lot of people from those countries volunteering as well, which was very interesting. We were very happy to see that. And our neighbors, Argentina, as well. Okay, a little bit about the legacy I talked about. Just, I mean, we're not inventing the wheel. It's just something how we see the legacy happening in Brazil. The short-term effect, of course, businesses and the hotel industry, which will just from FIFA and LOC and the teams alone, I'm not talking about fans, more than 600 million reais will be spent in hotels in Brazil. So during the World Cup. Tourism, there's the direct impact, and then the midterm effect of tourism, like it happened in South Africa, like it happened in Germany. Numbers show that, different studies show that. Awareness, Brazil is a big country. It's a big country. A lot of people talk about Brazil, but I'm from Rio de Janeiro, and if you mention the 12 host cities abroad, I talk often with people from the host cities that come abroad and mention, oh, I'm from Fortaleza. The World Cup secretary of Fortaleza, he's very keen to say that. He said, I'm from Brazil. He doesn't say Fortaleza because nobody knows where Fortaleza is, or very few people know, actually. So the World Cup is also an opportunity to raise awareness of these cities, and we have a beautiful coastline, but the Pantanal, the wetlands, the Amazon, these great opportunity to use the World Cup as a stepping stone to promote our tourism and the local businesses as well. So football development, as I mentioned, the LOC's training, pitch management, helping qualify in terms of skills, the stadium operators, because we have new equipment, but we don't have the manpower in the country, actually. It's a new industry that the World Cup is actually developing. Image, now it's up to the government and the cities, actually, how they package this window of the spotlight, the global spotlight with the World Cup. Because you have half of the population in the world watching your country, that host city board in the midfield line there, that's showing all the time the little name Cuiabá, Fortaleza. That's on the top of mind of people. Imagine if your country beats your biggest rival in the northeastern city of Fortaleza, that memory will remain with you forever. Maybe, someday, okay, I'm going to Brazil, why not Fortaleza, where we beat those guys over there. So it's also an image game perspective that's very important, and it's a long-term sustainable legacy as we view it. Infrastructure, last but not least, it's not the means of the World Cup, actually, but in Brazil, a developing country, developing even more in terms of infrastructure, a lot of ground to cover. The World Cup is a catalyst for there. I like to mention a good example of Cuiabá, for example. Cuiabá is the wetland city of Brazil. How am I doing on time, Jens?
It's getting there.
Okay, thank you. So Cuiabá is a very, very important gateway to the Pantanal. So it's one of our smallest host cities, but as we visit there and we see what's going on in the city. You look at cold numbers, the responsibility matrix on the federal government website. So you see 3 or 4 interventions that are going there. So there's a lot of things happening locally that were never going to take place. That's my view. I mean, other people may say, oh, no, it was forecast. But for sure, the World Cup catalyzed that. They now have a light rail system that will go from the airport to the hotel area downtown. And then as a legacy, they'll build it further from the other side. It will not be ready for the World Cup. And our guys there, my friends on the press in Brazil, say, okay, it's delayed, it's delayed, it's delayed. We don't need that for the World Cup. The World Cup catalyzed that. It's happening. It's a legacy. But it's going to be ready for the Brazilian people. FIFA is not going to put it on their backs and carry it to Russia. So Cuiabá is a very good example. If you go there, I think you should give it a try. 2 minutes. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's the last slide. Just to put it on one box, how we view the legacy in Brazil, the intangible, because I don't like intangible, actually. I will change that later. I think it's immaterial. Because you can see it's happening. The Brazilian pride and strengthening of local identities. Germany, South Africa, those are good examples. There are different countries. Brazil is a different country as well. But we have a lot to gain with that. Yes, we can. That started with the Olympics. Very few people believed Brazil would win that bid against the Americans, the Spanish, and Tokyo. So, and we made it. And we for ages, we lived with what we call the complexo de vira-lata. It's like the underdog complex, that we were not able to deliver things, to achieve greater things, that we're in a different league, and that the World Cup and the Olympics belong to the Elizabeth Arden circuit, countries that are more developed. Brazil, no, not for Brazil, but that changed, and you can feel that on the people on the streets as well. the celebration atmosphere that, I mean, for Brazil, that's not really a big tangible legacy because we're known for being a country of celebration. Workers' empowerment, qualification, as I mentioned. We have people who now know what it is to build a stadium, who now know what it is to refurbish an airport, things that had not happened for a long time in Brazil that are happening now. Sports legacy, the modern stadiums, as I mentioned, good for the fans, good for the clubs, the revenues are going up. Spectator services, something different. You go to a stadium now, you see a good seat, you're well treated. Different policing, you don't have the police with clubs in there like it was before. So it's more of a private security model now. Quality pitches, as I mentioned, the new concept in security. Infrastructure, I talked a lot about. I just make a brief point on we mentioned urban mobility, airports, and IT. Telecommunications, the Amazon, 4G arriving, how do you call it, broadband internet, all catalyzed by the World Cup. If you speak with the Minister of Communications, you'll see that. And running now, because Jens is kicking me out of the podium, tourism, immediate awareness, the Brazil brand, as I mentioned, and debunking stereotypes about the country. I'm sure you're well-informed people. It's not for you, but there's a lot of misinformation around of what Brazil is. Brazil has a lot to grow, a lot to go on the social side. We have a lot to catch up from a historical perspective. We had problems in the past, but we believe, that's my personal view, Saint-Clair, not LOC now. I believe Brazil is on the right track. We're moving forward, and we cannot let perceptions that we cannot deliver things stand in our way and be harmed by missing this big opportunity that we see the World Cup. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Obrigado. Questions? That's my email address. It goes straight to my email, okay?
Thank you very much, Saint-Clair. I kick very badly these days, and you got a nice portion of the minister's time too, but I also think that's only fair, that we have official viewpoints well represented. And I think you addressed very precisely some of the major concerns around a World Cup arrangement, and you left a good material for the debate here and now. You come with information in a very specific way that you can actually argue about. It gives a good basis for the debate now and on a longer term also. I'm sure some of our experts in numbers will be challenged a bit by some of the yeah, and that's good. But there will be basis for another Play the Game conference at a later stage. One very important factor for public trust, not only in relation to the FIFA World Cup and not only in relation to Brazil, is that taxpayers have more than a vague idea about where their money, their hard-earned money is going and who's actually spending it. And I think Brazil is actually doing, this is a big challenge for Brazilian society. I have never been to a country where the words politicians and thieves were mentioned as often in the same phrase as in Brazil. There's a huge public mistrust in Brazil, so there's a big repair work to do. And some of the people employed to do the repair work and also to make sure that very big projects like the hosting of mega events are becoming more rational than they would otherwise be. That's the Controladoria-Geral da União, the general controllers of the Union. Brazil is a union, as you know, a federation. And Brenno de Souza is one of their foremost experts who will lay out what the CGU is. CGU is actually how you're carrying out your work. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. First, I would like to thank for the opportunity to be here. And as everybody knows, Brazil in the last decade has held some important sport events, such as World Military Games, Pan Americans, and Confederations Cup. But the biggest challenge is coming. Brazil will host the World Cup next year and Olympic and Paralympic Games in 2016. And with the major events, the risks are coming too. And the challenge here is to transform the risk in opportunities. What kind of opportunities? We are talking about political, economical, and social opportunities. And so, in this context, I will present the challenge of hosting major sport events, the case of Brazil. My name is Brenno. I am the Deputy General Coordinator in audit areas of tourism and sports. Specifically, I work in Federal Control of Brazil, Controladoria-Geral da União. I work in the Controller-General of Brazil. Sometimes I will call Sejer or CGU. So here we go. But what does Sejer do? I will explain the institutional framework. CGU works as an anti-corruption agency of Brazilian federal government and as an internal control unit. We do some internal audit, disciplinary actions, and corruption preventions, and ombudsmans as well. Generally, we can say that we try to guarantee public transparency, try to help some managers and give some advisors. We do some surveys, auditings, inspections, and monitor some activities. Now I will show you the college bodies to coordinate and plan the World Cup 2014. The same, a similar structure. We have the similar structure for the Olympic Games too, but I will focus on the World Cup because of the time. This structure is intended to connect the managers and controllers, and we try to know how much is spent in the major events and when you will be spending it. It's like a kind of controlling that we know how it will go. And so you have three entities in this structure. The first one is called World Cup's Management Committee. Then we have the World Cup Executive Group and the responsibility committees in each host city. Here you can see the main tasks of each element. We have Sejer. It works in a strategic way. What does it do? It develops directives for the strategic plans for the World Cup. And we have Gecopa. It works in a tactical way. It establishes the strategic plans and goals, earmarks related to actions in the budgets, and coordinates actions carried out with federal resources. Ministry of Sports coordinates the first one and the second one. And we have the chambers, and with thematic chambers, they propose policies and tactical recommendations. So in each specific area, we have some proposals, such as in the health area, tourism, culture, education, transport. So each ministry have to present your intentions. In these intentions pass to the GCOP and Sejer, and it's approved. So you have a control about it. It's not just, oh, let's do it, not it. And it's important to say that in the transparency area, Sejer will coordinate it. And we have a lot of tools to do that. One of the tools, it's called matrix of the responsibilities. We have one matrix for each area. And what does it do? Matrix outlines the roles of individual signatories, set the responsibility for federal units. As everybody knows, Brazil is a federation. So in each unit, you have a limit and expenses to goals. And what else? The matrix defines the projects and amounts to be invested, sets deadlines, and serve as a tool to monitor actions. We can see the matrix of the responsibilities in the Portal da Transparência. And what does Portal is? Portal is a website, and the website is www.portaldatransparencia or portaltransparencia.gov.br. This is a famous website in Brazil, and we have two sections in the website. One for the World Cup and another one for the Olympic and Paralympic Games. The first section is called Copa 2014. It's for the World Cup. There you can see a lot of information, such as the resources per thematic area, the resources and activities per host city, and the matrix of responsibilities and legislations. Tomorrow someone asked about laws. You can see over there is some specific laws that control these major events. Another section that we have called Jogos Rio 2016, it's work for the Olympic and Paralympic Games. So if you enter there, you can see at the top the website. You can see some items that we can try to control what it is spent and how it goes. Okay, besides the transparency and managers' help, Sejer does some audits. And here you try to explain the analytical method of audit, doing by Sejer. Okay, first you understand the technical specifications. Then we verify the project's quantities and qualities too. After that, we analyze budgets based on Brazilian price reference systems such as Sinap, Comprasnet, Cicro. It's famous in Brazil. I know nobody knows about the systems, but after that, finally we set on site visits to confirm technical specifications and the executions of the service. On the left, you can see an example of a project, and normally when you analyze a project, we check some items, like we see around it, such as designers, technical specifications, budgets, physical and financial timetables, quantities and qualities, descriptive technical data report, and some else. Okay. We analyze public calls, contracts, and agreements in different areas. Of course, all is involved federal public resource, we analyze. If it's a private resource, we don't do that. Just connect to the public resource. We audit actions, for example, in stadiums, urban mobility, tourism infrastructure. And in this case, it's important to say that monthly we check the stadiums and we check the physical and financial runs. And of course, we take some photos to accompany how the execution of the project goes. And we measure the quantities, qualities, and effectiveness of the service. And finally, we recommend, if it's something wrong, we recommend the public managers and monitor their development. But do you think that we do it just alone, by itself? Not. We work in an interinstitutional coordination. So we change some information, we do some partnership. For example, we can say that we work together with the Federal Courts of Accounts, State Courts of Accounts, Federal Prosecutor, and State Prosecutors. And of course, we work together ministries and policy, federal policy, and there is another important organizations that we work together. Okay, this is a specific case that we analyzed approximately $1 billion in 3 stadiums, Manaus, Rio de Janeiro, and Cuiabá. in engineering, design, and their execution. After the job, we got an overestimated budget in unit price and quantities, and in design of poor quality. After this job, we got an effective reduction of approximately 100 million. So you can see, in 1 billion we checked, we got 100 million of irregularities. After the jobs, we got some improvement about this job, like you can see at the bottom. Specifically, you can talk about the street cases. In Maracanã, the initial analysis by CGU find out an amount of 87 million overpriced and other irregularities. After a while, Federal Court of Accounts got 48.4 million overpriced after consultations between CGU and the state government. Specifically in Amazon Stadium, the initial analysis by CGU found 34 million overpriced and other irregularities. Then the Federal Court of Accounts expanded the scope of the audit and got more, 43 million overpriced after consultations between CGU and the state government. At the last, in Pantanal Arena, the analysis by CGU found out an amount of 34 million in irregularities in the execution of contract, like unjustly anticipated payment and improperly additions to the contract. Okay, and here is the most interesting part of the presentation. I will show you the main characteristics and current situations of the stadium for the World Cup. We have 12 stadiums, one for each host city. 6 of them are already done, and inclusive in the Confederations Cup, they use these stadiums, but you have 6 stadiums almost concluded, but not yet, and we are controlling it. First case, I will show you Mineirão stadiums. In each slide, you can see the capacity count, how much was provided, and how much was engaged. In this case, the stadium was concluded, as you can see in the photos. Next one is Mané Garrincha stadiums. It's already done too. By the way, I live in the city, and this is you can see the sky. For me, it's the most amazing sky that I've ever seen. If you have opportunity to be there, you have to check it. And okay, and the next one is Pantanal Arena. In this case, it's not already done. On the left, you can see the final project, and on the right, how it is now. You can see that approximately 82% is financial run, and the work was postponed to the end of this month. And the next stadium is called Complexo Esportivo Arena. As you can see, it's not done yet, and you can see the financial and physical run. As I said, you can see the final project and how it is now. The works was postponed to December of this year. Next one, Castelão Stadium. It's located in Fortaleza, Ceará. It's done, and the inaugural match was at the beginning of this year. Now you can see Arena da Amazônia Stadium. It's nearby the Amazon forest, and the works was postponed to December, and you can see how it's going. The next is Natal, and you can check how much was provided and engaged, and is still, and the work was postponed to December. The next is Beira Rio, Porto Alegre. Then we have Itaipava, Pernambuco Stadium. It's already finalized. As you can see, you have some matches over there, as in Maracanã is the most famous stadium in Brazil. You have a lot of mats inside there. Then we have Fonte Nova Stadium, São Paulo Stadium. And here you can see the whole final project and the main signed city of each whole city. Besides benefits in stadium, we are hoping more. The citizen Brazilians hope for the benefits in the sport complex, ports, airports, urban mobility, tourism, public security, and telecommunications. Okay. So we hope to see you soon. And concluding, we hope not just an infrastructure legacy. We hope more. We hope to get a legacy in the transparency, in proper management, and of course, in ethics. And this is my contacts. If you are interested, thanks so much for it.
Thank you, Brenno. We will take and examine the figures here in the break, and there will be a free cup of coffee for those who can remember all those figures. I just have one question for you right now. You showed you are obviously monitoring the building process of the stadium. You could tell how much money of the total budget have been spent, etc., and how far have they got. But if you take the total costs of those stadiums, public cost for those stadiums, what would you assume these total costs will end up, and what is the difference, because you have been involved? How much do you assess that you have so to say saved the taxpayers in your self-evaluation? Now, I don't know who are controlling you, but I assume that the figures you give. So how expensive will it be, and how much has been saved?
Yeah. We try to accompany. We have some spread works that, as I explained 3 cases, and we didn't account how much it was in totally saving, because we have a financial BNDES. It's a bank, and it's give money, public money, to this construction. So we give some advices to control it. And we have several amounts of economicals for taxpayers, but already now we don't know how much in totally.
I know that, for instance, an NGO called Jogos Limpos, the Clean Games, they try to cooperate and to create transparency, and they experience particular problems, not with the federal government, but with all the state governments.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same, that it's sometimes hard even for you to get the information you need about Stadia?
Oh yeah, of course. And
of course. Okay, of course.
So, the Portal de Transparência that I show, it's update website. However, we have a problem. The managers sometimes don't give the information updated. That's why if you check how much was spent, sometimes you can check the update information, because the managers, mainly at the top, have to confirm the spends, and sometimes they postpone to give us information. If you have the information, we show the citizens, but the problem is sometimes we ask, okay, come on, give us some information, and they postpone it, and it's hard for us and for the whole citizens in Brazil and in the world too.
And you then take them to court if they don't, or do they get fined if they don't give you information?
Yeah, actually, Sejer doesn't have this power. But we, like I said, we have connections. So we try to talk to the AGU, Advocacia-Geral da União, to the prosecutors, and to the TCU, the Federal Court of Accounts. And then after that, they can find it. But we don't have this power, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's time for coffee, and we will. The time manager was not so strict at the beginning of the session, so we actually are where we would expect it to be, even with one speaker more. That means you were allowed 10 minutes more in the morning. So I hope you're grateful. We will have two great speakers after the coffee break, and we'll meet here exactly at 10:30. Thank you.